For the course of history, I think it's safe to say that real estate has been the most dependable way to build wealth.
I would say the FHA mortgage and buying a house is probably the average person's best chance.
Today, we're going to reveal the number one secret to building wealth, the best vehicle to actually build that wealth, and the 3 things you have to do before you start building that wealth. I'm here with my good friend, Omar Sharif, successful real estate investor. He's actually building his very first 24-unit, $12 million investment property, mixed use. And he started as a real estate agent. And before that, he started by cutting my hair when we were like 12 years old. So,
Barbershop.
Yeah, that's right. So look at him now, doing big things, man. First, let's talk about the number one secret to building wealth. Let's let the cat straight out of the bag.
Yeah.
What is it?
Within real estate, I think you'd agree that it's being able to compound your initial investment, investing something once and watching it grow over time.
Yeah, and I think it's a topic that's hard to wrap your head around when you're not used to the topic in general.
Yeah.
So generally, like, compound is if you put $100 into something and that $100, let's say, grows by a certain percentage, and now you're making that percentage on the $105
Right.
instead of just that 100, and then it just continually compounds over time, right?
Yeah, and your initial investment remains the 100 or whatever it was in order for you to get that 100.
And what would you say, I know the answer, I think, but what would you say is the number one vehicle to building this wealth with compounding?
Probably stocks. Real estate is the best vehicle for the average person or anyone who's already an investor. I would say real estate.
Yeah, and I think that there is an argument that stocks do offer an attractive possibility in compounding, but for the course of history, I think it's safe to say that real estate has been the most dependable way to build wealth throughout time, and probably a little more reliable and less scary in a lot of ways when you compare it to investing in stocks, right?
Because real estate is something tangible. You can calculate it better. And with stocks, you don't really have control of what you're picking. You can make your best guess, but you have no way of actually increasing the value or betting that it's going to continuously go up.
And I think another great thing about investing in real estate versus stocks is all the tax advantages.
Big time.
That's something that we didn't know before we started investing in real estate in general.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just, how can you go wrong with you can never go wrong owning land, right?
Yeah.
And there's only a certain amount of land available, and more people are buying it up. So you got to get in it.
And like you mentioned, tax advantages and the ability to access and own real estate is doable for most people in a much better way than picking out stocks and hoping that goes up.
And we should go on the record as saying we didn't come from any real estate background. Our families had no real estate background, and we were able to figure it out.
Right. So we've asked all the questions. How do we build wealth, right?
Yeah.
Stock market's always there. People say you could make gains pick the right stock and you can double, triple your investment. But I've tried that many times, and I've been somewhat okay with it. But overall, I'm probably a net down on stock, so I would not suggest it.
Well, and I'll say this. I think that there's a healthy mixture of real estate and stocks, and I invest in stocks, and I am not like a swing trader or a day trader or anything like that.
Buy and hold.
I'm buy and hold. Like, I don't want to touch that. I feel good seeing it go up year over year.
Yeah.
So I think there is room for both, but I think the safer bet is real estate. So compounding is the number one secret to building wealth. The number one vehicle, in our opinion, arguably, is investing in real estate to make that compounding happen over time.
Right.
And, I think there are 3 really important steps that everybody needs to take before they just jump into investing in real estate, right?
Yeah.
So can you break that down for us?
So before we get into the top 3, let's just go over what compounding is in real estate, right? Because it's a little different than compound interest, where you're earning a specific amount of interest on a fixed fund that you're putting in, $100,000 or whatever. In real estate, let's say you buy a house for $100,000.
Okay.
If you maintain that property, keep it in good condition, if you rent it out, no one's buying a house for $100,000 these days, especially in New Jersey. But let's assume that's the number. Yeah. Then your initial cost is whatever it was to buy that $100,000 house. So let's say you put 20% down payment. Your out of pocket is $20,000, and now you own an asset for $100,000. That itself is a huge leverage. $20,000 lets you control and own something $100,000. Now, if you keep it and maintain it over the course of history, we know real estate prices in the long run always go up. So your initial investment now continues to go up in value, and it compounds and compounds. Now, if you're renting it, your cash flow also starts to go up. And as your equity goes up and the house is worth more than 100, let's say at some point it's worth 300, you now have home equity that you can leverage. So house price increases, cash flow increases, you have the opportunity to leverage from that asset. And those three compound effects can lead to a lot more properties and you increasing your net worth.
And that's a great point that I forgot to even think about is if you're buying stocks, if you're buying $1,000 in stocks, you're paying $1,000 up front for that amount of stocks. In real estate, you pay your 20%, sometimes less, depending on the scenario, and you're getting an asset that's worth that much more.
Yeah. So the leverage aspect of real estate, it beats most other real estate investments just because you could leverage so much in real estate.
Yeah, great point. So, okay, so now let's get into the three things anybody who wants to become a real estate investor has to do before they jump into it blindly.
I would say the first step is being in a good financial position. Now, to me, that means having decent credit score. You don't have to have a perfect credit score, but anything above 650, 700 is good score. Not being in debt, not having credit card debt or over leveraging car payments, not owning anything that depreciates in value, right?
Right. Bad debt.
Bad debt. And of course, having some sort of income or some sort of safety net, some cushion, whether it's 1,000, 2,000, depending on your starting point, and just having a neutral starting point so you could think about real estate and think about how you're growing instead of covering your bases.
So that's step two. So step one, just so I could break this down in my own head, it's get out of bad debt, make sure that your credit's on point, because if you're buying a property, unless you're paying cash, which is not a good idea when you're starting out, you need good credit.
Yeah.
And there are a million other ways to do it. If you're working with partners and all that stuff, we'll get into that in a later episode. But just to keep things really simple, have your credit on point.
Right.
You want to make sure that you have a budget in place, that you're not over leveraging yourself just in life. Get rid of the fancy car.
Yeah.
That's the number one thing, and we'll get into that another time, but don't have an expensive car payment just so you look cool pulling up to Starbucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Drive the beater that we did for a long time. I still do. I still can't get myself back to a car payment.
I don't blame you. I just upgraded very recently, but I love my Lexus.
Yeah. So make sure that your debt situation and your credit is on point. That's step one. Step two is make sure that you save some sort of emergency fund, right?
Right.
And why is that?
Typically, once you begin looking for deals and getting involved in real estate, you need time. And depending on if you keep your day job or if you quit your day job, you're going to need some funds to account for expenses that you may not incur. So that could mean a bunch of things. But let's say someone keeps their day job, you need some funds just to start investing in real estate, whether it's marketing or just additional expenses associated with anything. So if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you need to start putting some money away that you could contribute towards real estate investing.
And we should say that even when you're living paycheck to paycheck and it feels like you can't make cutbacks on anything, sometimes you need an outside perspective to look over your budget and kind of shine some light on what you can cut back on. Because I've been there where I'm making horrible money and you don't think that there's any way that you could save money. But sometimes it takes another perspective to say, oh, well, you're spending money on this and that. You could actually cut back. Or you're spending $600 on your car payment. Why don't you get a less expensive car and save that $600 payment?
And that's a major, and a lot of people aren't willing to do it, but downgrading your lifestyle has to be a part of it.
Temporarily.
You
have to take a step back to take a step forward.
Take 2 steps forward.
Take 2 steps. Take a leap forward.
There you go.
Yeah. It's true though.
Yeah.
For real. So
and I went through it. I used to work at a good corporate job, but when I went to go into real estate full time, I had to cut my expenses significantly because everything takes time to build up.
And what's step 3? Save your down payment, right?
Save your down payment, yeah. But what type of down payment would you suggest?
So everybody automatically thinks that you need a 20% down payment for a house, right? But this is the secret sauce. And I did this. I think you did it as well. When I was going to first buy my very first investment property, I was looking at a single family house or a condo. And then I met someone who said, why are you thinking about a single family house or a condo?
Yeah.
Get a multifamily house where you're going to be getting a large portion of your mortgage paid. And on top of that, if you're a person that doesn't have a wife and kids or whatever the scenario is, in the duplex or three family that you're living in, if you have an extra bedroom or two in your space that you're living in, you could also rent the bedrooms out.
Yeah.
So you're house hacking and having a multifamily. And here's the beautiful part. You know this.
Yeah.
Instead of putting 20% down on a multifamily, you could put 3.5% down if you do an FHA mortgage.
Yeah.
And what is an FHA mortgage?
Typically, it's a mortgage for first-time home buyers. Main advantage is it's a 3.5% down payment. You have to have a decent credit score, income, obviously. And I would say the FHA mortgage and buying a house is probably the average person's best chance at building wealth, best initial start at building wealth, because you could leverage a $500,000 house, but only putting down 3.5%.
And as far as the income goes,
Yeah.
they will count the rental income as income toward the housing payment.
Yeah. So you can afford more home.
Right. Which I don't think many people realize.
Yeah.
And even though in this market, it does seem crazy, there are not as many deals out there as there were a few years ago. I think that'll eventually, reset and get back to normal.
It always does.
There always are deals out there. You just have to put a little bit more work to find them.
Yeah.
That's great. So let's recap what we've gone over in this video. The number one way to build wealth, compound interest. The number one vehicle to get you there, real estate.
Right.
The three things you have to do before you start investing in real estate is get out of debt, get your finances in order, build an emergency fund, and then start saving for your down payment for your first investment property,
Right.
which doesn't have to be 20% down. It could be 3.5% down payment, FHA mortgage, multifamily house. That's what we're saying to do.
Yeah, I'd say those 3 steps are probably the best way for anyone to get started in real estate and use the power of compounding and leverage to own your first asset.
So if anybody's watching this, I hope people are, because this is helpful stuff that took us years to learn.
Yeah.
And you want to become a real estate investor, make sure that you subscribe, watch our channel. It really means a lot to us. We put a lot of work into this whole production, and it just means a lot. If you think this video might help somebody, share it. If you want more information, reach out to us, comment on the video. We'll get back to you. Let us know what you're trying to do, where you want to go with real estate investing. If you're a little bit more advanced and you want to get involved in actually putting capital into a deal, we have deals going on. We'd love to see if you're a good fit. We're not looking for just anybody, but if you are in a good position and are ready for that, reach out. We'd love to potentially work with you.
Thanks for watching this episode. Now don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment, and we'll see you next time.